Well, hello everyone. I hope you had a really nice Thanksgiving. This is Fridays with Sandy. I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. There is Sandy. You could see him. He's in Boston.
Shalom.
And we have Zach, who has a 720 GMAT, a 3.3 GPA. He works for a private, one of the biggest private companies in the United States. It's a technology consulting firm. He has some very big name, well-known clients that he works for. He is a strategic account manager for them. He's been promoted twice. And his goal is to go to a really great MBA program. His choices, Tuck, Darden, Fuqua, Kellogg, and Yale. What do you think?
Yeah, hi Zach. What we got here is a white male with a 3.3 and a 720, who's applying to schools like Tuck, Darden, Fuqua, Kellogg, and Yale, where those are average stats, but a little below average for white guys. Now, John, do these schools admit by white guys, or do they just admit people first come, first serve, or whatever?
Well, I think that generally they put people in buckets. So I would put Zach in a consulting bucket, for example. And the fact that he's not McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and Deloitte is a plus for him. And the fact that he's been promoted twice and he works for, fairly well-known clients, I think is actually a plus. But you're right. The class, his GPA is below the class average at these schools, while the GMAT looks to be in line. You're right, for a white male consultant, it's probably just a few points below.
Okay, now Zach, you said you're retaking the GMAT. Here's an interesting question, John. So instead of a 720, suppose you got a 740. Does that change anything?
It does change things a lot, and I hate that it does. As you and I both
exactly
agree.
Right. Yeah,
it's a couple of damn questions on the test, for Christ's sake. It matters nothing. What we'll repeat what you always say about the famous quote from the former Harvard Business School managing director of admissions, D. Leopold. I don't care what your score is, as long as there's a 7 in front of it, I'm okay, right?
Yeah, well, she said that, but it's not true in this case. There's a real difference. This is real important. The difference between a 720 and a 740 is colossal, or if not, pardon my exaggeration, there's a lot of difference between a 720 and a 740. We could argue forever whether there should be, but there is. And, like, what would a 740 do, Zach, at his target schools like Yale?
I think it would increase his odds by 20, 30 percentage points. But more importantly, his post-MBA goal is to work for McKinsey, Bain, or BCG in consulting. And those firms ask for GMAT scores.
You're right. That's true too. But let's get him in first. Okay, Zach. So you're taking the GMAT over. That's good advice. I just want to stress this point about, for folks listening at home, the difference between a 720 and a 740 is very, very large. And if you've got a 720 and you consider yourself a gung-hoer, take it again. How many times should you take it, John?
As often as you need to take it to get the score you're aiming for.
Yeah, right. Keep taking it.
Yeah, now in Zach's case, we should point out to everyone that he's only taken the GMAT once and he took it without studying. So the chances of him getting 740 and 750 with a little work, very, very high.
Okay. Zach, what is it? You work at Allegis Group Tech Systems. This is going to be important because a lot of people haven't heard of it. What is it?
Yeah, so we're the largest privately held talent management and technology services provider in the US. What we do is we essentially partner with Fortune 500 and large private companies to achieve business outcomes via technology solution.
What does that mean?
So, for example, if a bank comes to us and says, we need to understand our customers more effectively and we don't know how, I will go in with my team to understand what their back-end technology looks like to help synthesize data more effectively. And we'll build a team to actually execute and help them do that.
Give me an example of how you helped a bank if it's not a secret.
Yes.
What did you tell after you did that? What the bank might say, give me something I can use. So after you and your team went in there, what did you tell the bank?
So for one of the banks that I partner with, we went in, they had built a fraud modeling system that they couldn't get to work. So it was taking transactional customer data and helping them understand credit card fraud better. But they couldn't get it to work. So my team built more efficient data pipelines that allowed them to increase the productivity of the system and save upwards of $10 million over the first couple of months.
By identifying fraudulent transactions?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good. And then what's the second bullet on your resume here? Led go-to-market strategy with Snowflake and AWS channel partners.
Yeah. So my organization, because we are an execution arm and an advisory arm, we partner with organizations like an Amazon Web Services or Snowflake or Tableau or whoever it might be, because they actually have a technology product. And what we do is if their product works effectively for the solution that we want to add, we'll go to market with them. And what we can do in that scenario is we can create cost savings for the end client. So, for example, with AWS, we can save a client upwards of $500,000 just by going through us to get AWS in their environment.
So what you do sounds like you're a consultant, like you're an IT consultant. I mean, is that, how misleading is that to say?
It would be misleading just because I'm not if you wanted me to go in and build the infrastructure for you, I'm not the guy. But what I do know is I know how the components fit together and I put the pieces together for the client. And then we bring in technical people to actually do it.
Yeah. So Zach, you're working the relationship with the client for the firm.
Exactly.
Which is actually better that he's dealing, I think, with high level, well-known clients and managing those relationships as opposed to being, a nerd doing the grind work.
Yeah, I agree. I never meant that was, that's what I meant by consultant. You're a consultant that helps people optimize their IT systems. Am I still wrong?
Yeah, that's a big component of what I'm doing.
Good. Okay. And then you've worked at the Allegis Group, TEK Systems for 3 years, and then so John, here's the question, like, what can he do to break out of the white male pack to get into these schools that are a little reach?
Yeah. I think it's basically, isn't it showing impact at work? Now, he's gotten 2 promotions. That's a very positive thing. So maybe how did you get those promotions? And since you've only been there 3 years and you've had 2 promotions, that sounds pretty impressive.
Yeah, so you need your recommenders to really get to bat for you. You have to prepare your recommenders to rave and say, this guy is part of a group of X guys, and he's the number 1 or 2 people out of these X groups. That's been proven by the fact of his promotions, his letters of commendation, his reviews, et cetera, et cetera. Those guys are really going to have to sell you. Is there anything you can do about the 3.3?
Just get that higher GMAT, as you know. That will offset the 3.3. Now, the other issue here, let me put it out there, is you got the 3.3 at Fairfield University, which is not known as a highly selective university, and you're going to compete with people in these pools who went to very highly selective and prestigious universities.
Yeah, more selective, right? Okay, right. Good point. Yes.
So Zach, can you explain why you went to Fairfield? Is there were you local? Are you first gen? Are you anything like that?
So I'm first generation college student. My dad's in the military. So Fairfield, honest, to be quite honest, they were an accredited business school. That was important to me. And they gave me by far the most money from a scholarship perspective. And that was something that I needed.
Okay, those are really important elements to your story.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely, John.
Because, as we have said in the past, unfortunately, admissions at these schools is very elitist, and admission officers are trying to make risk adverse decisions. And the way they do that is they look at your undergraduate experience, and if you went to a highly selective school, you pass through one screen. Then you go to an employer that's highly selective, you pass another screen. So basically, they are limiting their risk in admitting you and making an admissions mistake by what school you attended and what employer hired you. So
Yeah.
that's why you need to fill out that story. First gen, they gave you a lot of money and you needed it. Great.
And then was Fairfield for a finance, for a business, for a finance and math major? You majored in finance, you minored in math. Is that a tougher curve there?
It's one of the best finance programs in the Northeast for sure.
Just in terms of grading at Fairfield, like is a 3.3 for a finance major a little different than a 3.3 for a?
It's certainly more difficult than the liberal arts.
Yeah, my own major, English.
Mine too.
Well, we're the poets here. This
We
is
are
just
the poets.
two poets talking to a quant here, right? So that's something you might stress. Boy, is there a possibility of John taking a course over the summer? Like,
Well, it depends on your grades. Now, because you took kind of quant courses,
yeah,
if your grades on your transcript in those courses were A's, you're good. You're golden. If not, you might want to take an online calculus course or statistics course to ace it. But if you get the 740, does he really need to do that?
740 does a lot of talking.
And a lot of walking.
Yeah, walks and talk. I want to stress this point. Difference between a 720 and a 740 is very large. We can argue whether it should be, but it is.
Yeah. And the other thing is, there is this whole thing, the balance between your GPA and your standardized test score. If your GPA is below the class average, you need the GMAT or GRE to be above.
Yep.
And vice versa.
It's a question, man. You're in a bucket. The question is, why should they take you versus the other guys? And you gotta
be ready to answer it.
Well, the fact you worked at Allegis is a plus if you can explain it correctly and explain the company. It's a huge company. It's just not well known.
Okay, let me put something else out there, if you don't mind, Sandy. The fact that he's white male, is that a disadvantage if you're first gen? If the first gen takes you out of the traditional white male pool, doesn't it?
No, they don't. They don't. You assume they're trying to be fair and judicious. They just can take X number of white males and they want the best ones.
Yeah.
You get the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just a couple of hash marks on a spreadsheet to them, my friend. They don't care about the human backstory.
You still need to say you're first gen and they gave you a lot of money and that's why you went there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right. Okay.
So the tough love is you retake the GMAT, right,
Yeah,
Sam?
that's absolutely. That's the best thing you can do, and it's 20 times better than whatever number 2 is. Retake the GMAT, explain very clearly that Allegis Group is a major, worldwide company.
And you work for your name companies, clients.
Yeah, it's like number 22 of private companies. You got to get that on your resume.
Okay.
This is, I've said it before. This is not a resume to apply to business school. if you did all that, it would help a little. I think your chances of getting into your target schools are pretty much in line with what their acceptance rates are, which is kind of 20, 25, 30%. Is that your sense of it, John?
Yeah, I think that's right. And if you get to 740, obviously you can add 10, 20 points to your odds, I think. Obviously the odds at Duke and Darden could be a bit higher. At Kellogg, Yale, and Tuck, probably more on the averages, unless you get to 740, which is why I think it's important for you.
You think is any schools you're thinking of any other schools, Zach or John? Could you recommend some other schools that he should think about?
Yeah, there's one that I'm actually recently went on a couple of their online events. It's Georgetown. So my end goal, I want to be in the public sector. So I think that being close to DC and with that kind of a program, I think that would help me a lot.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Georgetown, Georgetown is about the same in terms of getting in as these other places, isn't it, John? Or is it a little
No, much higher admit rate. I think Georgetown,
that's a good choice
for you, is a safe school. But I do think these schools here, it's a good range of targets given your story. And you're going to get 2 or 3 rejects, and you're going to get 2 or 3 acceptances.
There you go.
GMAT score, recommenders raving. That's my advice to you, Zach. Okay.
Good advice. Zach, good luck to you, okay? I'm sure, like I said, 2 or 3 of these places are going to embrace you, welcome you. Sandy, thank you as always. And for all of you out there, thanks for watching Fridays with
Happy
Sandy.
Thanksgiving. Shalom. A big gesund.
Bye-bye, everybody.